Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we dig into a whole load of information and pull out the really crucial insights just for you.
That's the idea. You're here because you want to understand what's important, get right to it, and, do it efficiently.
Exactly. And today, we've got a really fascinating exploration. We're diving into the very beginning stories of some startups that really changed the game.
We are. And our source material is fantastic. It's firsthand accounts from the founders themselves, captured in Jessica Livingston's book, Founders at Work, Stories of Startups' Early Days.
Yeah, so we're getting it straight from the people who were actually there, building things, coding, hustling, often with very little except determination.
And our goal isn't just to tell stories. We're really hunting for the practical wisdom, those key decisions, the flashes of insight that you can actually use.
Right. Whether you're launching something new, maybe just figuring out your career path, or even tackling a tricky problem in your day-to-day.
So yeah, get ready. We're going to look at the sometimes surprising reality of those early days, the choices that really shaped these huge companies, and tangible lessons on things like innovation and just plain grit.
Distilled startup smarts, basically.
Straight from the source. Let's jump in.
Okay, first up, this idea of perception versus reality.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of startups, especially early on, there's this gap, right? How things look versus what's actually going on.
Oh, absolutely. Jessica Livingston talks about this from her own startup experience. When visitors were expected, everyone would sort of scramble to look professional. Clean desks, tidy office.
The whole 9 yards. But that wasn't when the real work happened, was it?
Not at all. She puts it brilliantly. In fact, programming didn't get done by well-dressed people at clean desks during office hours.
Okay, so when did it get done?
She says it got done by badly dressed people in offices strewn with junk at 2 in the morning. She even mentions programming in just a towel.
Huh. Okay, that definitely pulls back the curtain.
It really does. And I think the takeaway here for you, the listener, is about focus. Are you focusing on appearing productive or on actually doing the work?
Yeah, the results versus the optics.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in looking busy or, fitting some conventional mold.
But these founders, they were often just heads down, getting it done, even if it meant chaos and late nights. So maybe the lesson is prioritize the actual output.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears. Thinking about future trends. Max Levchin, one of the PayPal co-founders, he had this initial big idea, right?
He did. It was all about cryptography for handheld devices. Think Palm Pilots back in the day.
And he was pretty sure about this.
Oh, yeah. He assumed, and I'm quoting him here, the assumption was that the enterprises are going to all go to handheld devices really soon. Every corporate dog in America will hang around with a Palm Pilot.
So a strong bet on that specific future.
A very strong bet. Now, it didn't quite play out exactly like that, obviously.
But that's the interesting part, isn't it?
Hmm.
The lesson isn't necessarily about predicting the future perfectly.
Exactly. It's about spotting the potential shifts, seeing where technology might go, even if your first guess isn't spot on. His awareness of cryptography and mobile tech was crucial, even if the first application wasn't the final one.
So for us, it's about keeping an eye on emerging trends, thinking about possibilities, but also being ready to adapt.
Absolutely. Be adaptable. His core insight about digital security on the go was variable. It just found its killer app somewhere unexpected later. What trends are you seeing now? Maybe just on the horizon.
Good question. Okay, speaking of Levchin in those early days, they were intense. He tells a story about getting a demo ready.
Oh, incredibly intense. The pressure was immense. He actually called it potential ritual suicide if the demo failed. That's how high the stakes felt.
Wow. And it wasn't just one late night.
No, it was a 5-day, pretty much sleepless coding marathon to get this crypto demo working.
And the reason for that intensity, he said,
Yeah, with crypto, if you were one bit off, nothing's going to work. It demanded absolute perfection.
Right. So this is where it gets real. Maybe you're not coding crypto for 5 days straight.
Hopefully not.
But that level of dedication, that intense focus needed sometimes to push through on something really ambitious.
Yeah,
That probably resonates, right?
definitely. Think about those times you had to really dig deep, commit fully to get something important done. What drives that? For these founders, it was sheer necessity and belief.
But that intense focus sometimes needs flexibility.
Oh.
Which brings us to the pivot. PayPal didn't stick with that handheld idea.
Not at all. This is fascinating. They started noticing something unexpected. People were using their website, which was just meant to be a demo for real transactions.
And not just any people.
Right. A lot of them were coming from eBay, and they
Mm.
started asking if they could put the PayPal logo on their auction listings.
And PayPal's initial reaction was
No, don't do it.
they resisted it at first.
Incredible. All this focus on high-tech crypto for Palm Pilots, and the real energy was coming from, well, eBay auctions. It just shows, doesn't it? And here's the key insight for you. Listen to your users. Pay attention to how people are actually using what you've built. The market might tell you something completely different from your original plan.
Be open to that unexpected behavior. Don't be so rigid about your initial vision.
Exactly. It's all about that customer discovery. Are you really listening? Even when the feedback challenges your assumptions? Sometimes the users show you the way.
That adaptability seems crucial. And sometimes that means tackling really hard, fundamental problems. There was a big internal debate at PayPal, wasn't there, about priorities.
Yes, a major one. The CEO wanted to push forward with developing for the Windows platform. Seemed like the next logical step, maybe.
But Livingston disagreed.
Strongly. He argued, basically, we can't switch to Windows now. This fraud thing is most important. You can't allow any additional changes. He saw fraud as an existential threat they had to solve first.
So the shiny new thing versus the critical underlying problem.
Precisely.
Okay.
And they didn't just react to fraud, they got really sophisticated about it. They built systems to predict risk.
How does that work?
They would estimate the probability of losses programmatically, figure out the expected loss, and then sort the cases by expected loss. So they focused their human investigators on the highest risk cases first.
Very data-driven.
Extremely. And the lesson here is powerful. Identify your most critical problems, the ones that could actually sink you, and attack them relentlessly, even if they aren't glamorous.
Right. Focus on the foundation before building the penthouse.
Yeah.
Are you tackling the truly essential issues in your own work or getting distracted?
It's a constant challenge. For PayPal, dealing with fraud wasn't optional, it was survival.
Okay, another theme that keeps coming up is collaboration, having the right people alongside you.
Yeah, Levchin's advice to young programmers is really simple on this. He just says, try to have a good co-founder.
Why so important?
He felt that doing it totally alone is just incredibly hard. He'd run a company solo before PayPal and knew the struggle. There's no one to turn to when things get really tough, no one to brainstorm with, or just share the load.
That makes a lot of sense. And even if you're not starting a company, that idea applies, right? The value of collaboration, having people with different skills.
Absolutely. Who complements your strengths? Who can you lean on, and who leans on you? Building those strong partnerships, whether it's co-founders or teammates, seems fundamental.
But what happens when these small, scrappy teams grow? That initial culture, it changes, doesn't it?
It almost inevitably does. Levchin noticed this even before PayPal was acquired by eBay. He said people were already grumbling about how the startup culture was being lost, even internally.
And after the acquisition.
Even more so, naturally, it became part of a much larger corporation, his quick, almost funny marker for the change.
Ah, yeah. Less PowerPoints.
Exactly. It's shorthand for more bureaucracy, maybe less agility, more process.
Which isn't necessarily all bad.
Right.
Structure becomes necessary as you scale.
True. There are trade-offs. You need coordination. But it's worth being aware of how growth impacts culture, whether it's a company or any group project. How do things change as they get bigger?
Good point. Let's switch tracks again. Where do these big ideas even come from? Hotmail's origin story is a classic example.
It really is. Sabir Bhatia basically invented Hotmail because he was personally frustrated. He couldn't easily access his personal email from different work computers.
So he was scratching his own itch, as they say.
Exactly. It started as just a side project with a friend to solve their own problem.
But then when they looked for funding, people were skeptical.
Oh, yeah. The VCs asked the obvious question. How are you going to make money if you were going to give it away for free? The revenue model wasn't clear at all initially.
So the takeaway here is, sometimes the best ideas start just by solving a personal frustration you have.
It seems that way often. What annoys you day to day? Could there be an opportunity hidden in that frustration? Bhatia's annoyance led to webmail as we know it.
And he really believed in it, didn't he? Even when offered money early on.
He had incredible conviction. He said something like, once you have tasted this kind of success, that it works, that you've got subscribers telling you it's good, you know you are going to get there.
That belief, fueled by early validation, that seems key for pushing through obstacles.
Definitely. When you truly believe and you start seeing positive signs, it gives you the fuel to persevere. How strong is your conviction in what you're working on?
Let's go even further back. Apple. Steve Wozniak. His early computer designs, they weren't initially about building a giant company either, were they?
Not really. The Apple I, for instance, came from his personal desire to write and play games and also run simulations for his job at Hewlett-Packard.
He was just tinkering, solving his own problems using stuff he already had, like his TV.
Super resourceful. And interestingly, when Mike Markula urged him to leave HP and go full-time on Apple, Wozniak initially hesitated. He realized he could still do the engineering he loved, even on his own time.
Different motivations for innovation. It wasn't purely about the business side for him.
Right. And for you, the listener, maybe the takeaway is that sometimes great things emerge just from pursuing your own interests, solving your own problems, without some grand business plan at the start.
Just following your passion or curiosity.
Exactly. What are you genuinely interested in? Could exploring that lead somewhere unexpected?
And the partnership there, Wozniak and Jobs, is legendary. Their skills were very different.
Very complimentary. Wozniak himself said, they added up to the total everything that was needed. If neither knew how to do something, Jobs would just figure it out, find a way. Jobs handled the business, the vision, the marketing.
While was the engineering genius.
Precisely. They even brought in Ron Wayne early on as a trusted third party to mediate if needed. It really highlights the power of diverse talents and mutual trust in any team effort.
Are you leveraging different skills in your own collaborations? Building that trust?
It's fundamental. Wozniak also had this incredible focus on engineering quality, almost obsessive detail.
Yeah, his claim about the Apple II software.
It's pretty stunning. Every byte that went into the Apple II, not one bug ever found. Not one bug in the hardware, not one bug in the software.
Which today sounds almost impossible.
Almost, but the principle holds. That dedication to diligence, checking every little detail, it's valuable in any kind of work.
Meticulousness pays off. Are you sweating the small stuff where it counts?
Wozniak certainly did. And another key thing about the Apple II was its design philosophy.
You mean being open?
Exactly. Open architecture. They made it easy for others to build on, to modify, to experiment. Wozniak said, we made it easy for anyone to do what they wanted to do. I think that was one of the biggest keys to its success, unlike competitors who kept things closed.
That openness created a whole ecosystem around it.
It did. And the lesson there is about accessibility. Making things open, easy to understand, easy to build upon, it can foster huge adoption and innovation. Think about open source software, APIs today.
Are there ways to be more open in what you do, to encourage collaboration or wider use?
It's a powerful strategic choice. Now, getting those early computers accepted, especially in homes, was a challenge. Mike Markula was focused on this.
Right, thinking about marketing and initial software. Things like checkbook balancing.
Yeah, color math, checkbook, trying to make it seem useful for everyday life. But there were practical hurdles, like data storage.
Ugh, cassette tapes. Slow, awkward.
Definitely not ideal for user experience. It highlighted the desperate need for something better, like a floppy disk drive.
And Wozniak came up with a clever solution for the floppy drive itself, right? The synchronization problem.
He did. A really ingenious data pattern that basically let the drive lock onto the signal automatically. He even called it a bit of a lucky find.
Huh. Sometimes you need a bit of luck alongside the skill.
It shows that resourcefulness, that creative problem solving, often involves trying unusual things and maybe getting a little fortunate along the way. Don't be afraid to experiment when you hit a wall.
Good advice. And speaking of resources, Apple needed funding to grow.
They did. Markula provided crucial early investment and a loan, and they got venture capital funding pretty early too, even before the Apple II shipped, which helped fuel that rapid growth.
Shows that sometimes, even with a great product, you need that capital infusion to really scale.
Often essential for hitting escape velocity. Let's jump to someone with a very different early path. Jamie Zawinski. He learned early on what he didn't want.
Yeah, that microfiche job.
Sounds soul-crushing. It made him decide, basically, no office jobs, no working with people he didn't like, no doing work that felt meaningless. That kind of clarity early on is powerful.
And he even tried his hand at entrepreneurship early, with a t-shirt business.
Yeah, with a friend. Shows that desire to carve his own path. It really speaks to anyone who's felt trapped in a job that just isn't fulfilling.
Are you listening to those feelings? What really energizes you versus what drains you? Zawinski paid attention.
He did. Now, shifting to how connections happen, the way Excite got funded is wild. Pure serendipity, almost.
How did that happen?
Well, founder Joe Kraus said the chain of events seemed to have no connection. It involved, A college girlfriend, someone recommending a book, Accidental Empires, and then meeting the author of that book, which somehow led to funding.
Wow, just a series of unexpected links.
Exactly. And the lesson? Network. Be open to chance encounters, random conversations. You truly never know where that next vital connection or opportunity might come from.
Keep putting yourself out there, basically.
And be open. Excite also had a make or break moment with distribution,
Let's
right?
say deal.
Yeah, getting that search button on the Netscape browser. That was huge for visibility and traffic. And initially, those deals were apparently free.
Free traffic from the dominant browser back then. That's massive.
It highlights how critical distribution is. You can have the best thing in the world, but if nobody sees it,
You need a way to reach people. It's
Yeah.
not just about the product, it's about the channel.
absolutely crucial. Let's talk about another partnership. Dan Bricklin and Bob Frankston, the guys behind VisiCalc, their foundation was friendship.
Yeah, but Bricklin really emphasized that. He said the friendship was stronger than a lot of the business stuff. Even when they disagreed, that underlying relationship helped them navigate the business challenges without messing things up.
That's a powerful testament. Having that trust, that shared history, that camaraderie, it can be a huge asset in any long-term collaboration.
Are your working relationships built on that kind of foundation?
It clearly helped them. And they were resourceful too, weren't they, with development?
Definitely. They used MIT's time-sharing computer system late at night because it was cheaper then. They had limited funds.
Classic early-stage hustle, doing whatever it takes, finding clever ways to make progress with minimal resources.
And the design of VisiCalc itself. Bricklin put a lot of thought into making it understandable. The grid, the A1 cell names.
He specifically chose that map coordinate type of thing, A1, G7, because he knew regular people would understand it, unlike maybe more programmer-centric approaches. That focus on the user was key.
Even in the technical details, thinking about who's actually going to use this, how can I make it intuitive?
That user-centric design is a timeless principle. Are you really thinking from your user's perspective?
And how did they get people to even see VisiCalc back then?
Their distributor, Personal Software, did something pretty innovative. They sent self-running demo disks to computer stores so people could actually try it out easily.
Smart move, getting the product directly in front of potential users.
A great example of early product marketing. And VisiCalc, well, it became the reason to buy an Apple II for many people.
The killer app.
Exactly. It drove hardware sales. There are stories of big companies, investment bankers using it for serious financial work almost immediately. Some EDS guys apparently said, oh yeah, we did some deal and we used VisiCalc to do all the calculations.
Just incredible impact, solving a real significant problem for a lot of people.
And that's the power of it. If you create something genuinely useful, something that solves a major pain point, its adoption can be explosive. What fundamental need are you meeting?
Are you building something indispensable? VisiCalc clearly was.
And they didn't just rest on their laurels, they adapted to new technology.
Like moving to the IBM PC.
Right. Software Arts made the strategic call to develop for the IBM PC when it came out, recognizing it had more memory, a better processor. Adapting to the evolving tech landscape was key.
Staying relevant. And then came Lotus 123, which built on VisiCalc's ideas but took a different development approach.
Yeah, Mitch Kapoor apparently insisted on always having working code during development, developing close to the target machine, iterating constantly. He said it seemed obvious in retrospect, the benefits of always having something running.
That iterative approach, constant testing and progress, still very relevant today.
Very much so. Now let's look at 37 Signals, the company behind Basecamp. Jason Fried talks about how limitations actually help them.
Constraints as a benefit? How so?
They had limited resources, so they couldn't build every feature someone asked for. He said, that whole constrained development model really focused our view on what we needed, forced us to make tough decisions about making less software.
So fewer resources meant more focus on the absolute essentials, leading to a simpler, maybe better product.
That was the outcome. And it's a fascinating idea for anyone, really. Sometimes having fewer options, less time or money, forces you to be more creative and prioritize ruthlessly.
Could constraints actually be helpful in your own work or life? Force you to focus.
It's counterintuitive, but maybe. 37 Signals also had a unique marketing approach.
Right, not traditional advertising, more like teaching.
Exactly. Tutorials, books, talks, their philosophy was, we'll teach people stuff, and some tiny fraction of those people will become our customers, providing value, educating their audience, building trust that way.
Education is marketing. Powerful stuff.
Very effective for them. And finally, just to circle back on a theme we've heard again and again, Ron Gruner tells a story about asking Michael Dell the key to success.
And Dell's answer.
One word: persistence.
Simple, but echoes through almost all these stories.
It really does, that refusal to give up, pushing through the hard times.
So wrapping this up, we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of different stories from those early startup days.
Yeah, and while each journey was unique, you definitely see these common threads popping up again and again.
Like identifying real problems people have, not just cool technology, but solving a need.
Absolutely. And being adaptable, being willing to change course when reality or your users tell you something different.
The power of collaboration definitely stands out too. Finding those complementary skills, building trust.
And that relentless pursuit of quality, like Wozniak's attention to detail, plus overarching everything, that theme of persistence. Just keep going.
And hopefully, for you, the learner listening in, there's some concrete insights here you can think about, maybe apply to whatever you're working on.
Yeah, hopefully some practical takeaways. Which leads us to maybe one final question for you to ponder.
Okay, what is it?
Thinking about all these stories, these founders often challenge the norms. So what's one piece of conventional wisdom in your own world, your field, or even just your life that might be worth questioning, maybe even breaking?
That's a great question to leave people with. Food for thought.
Definitely.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope you found it insightful.
Yeah, and let us know what other areas you might want us to dig into next time.